everybody, and welcome back to the Digital Artcast. This is our first episode without Gordon. It is I, Colin. Gordon is actually probably asleep right now, but that's no fault of his because it's the middle of the night where he is in Scotland. So with him gone, I can do whatever I want now. Today we got the amazing Matt Rhodes here for an interview, so thanks right off the bat to Matt for giving up some of his time to do that for us.
Oh, well, thanks for having me.
No problemo. So first off, do you want to give us maybe a little bit of quick background on who you are and what you do? Maybe, how do you start off? What's your history in the industry, that kind of thing?
For sure, yeah. Well, right now I'm a lead concept artist at the game developer called BioWare. And
Right.
I've been with them now for, at the time of this recording, 11 years or so.
Wow, holy. That's awesome.
Yeah, in concept art field, I'm an old man already.
That's
but
true,
no,
actually. Concept art hasn't been around for, that long compared to other, fields and stuff.
It's really evolved in the last decade. It's
Yeah.
changed into a whole different animal.
Mm-hmm. So, have you worked for any other developers other than BioWare, or is that the only one?
No, actually, it's been BioWare straight out of school. It's a little hard to peg down sometimes how long I've been there because I started as an intern
Right, cool.
in between my third and fourth year, and then I signed on after I graduated.
Interesting. So, where did you go to art school?
I went to art school at the Alberta College of Art and Design in Calgary.
Mm-hmm. And how was it there? Did they have like an internship program to sort of, shuttle you off to a studio?
They didn't have an official intern program. It ended up being well. First of all, I really like the school. I'm quite fond of it. They had a great program,
Mm-hmm.
and still do. I was recently visiting. But at the time there were a few ACAD alumni working for BioWare, and while they were working on Jade Empire, they needed some extra help, and so they came down to look at portfolios and ask around. And so they hadn't ever actually done an intern before, or at least an art intern. So I was kind of the first one to do that.
Wow, so paving new ground there. Shit.
Yeah.
So did you start on Jade Empire? That's like way back.
Yeah, that was the first project that I was involved in.
Man, and what were you doing on Jade Empire?
I was doing character concepts mostly.
Nice. And were they character concepts that were going directly into the game then?
Yeah.
Wow, shit, that's cool. And this is in between your third and your fourth year.
It was, yeah.
Wow.
It was that summer I was working on Jade Empire, and then they were actually getting really close to the end. So I was kind of just providing extra NPC concepts and follower drawings and stuff like that.
Nice.
And then Mass Effect was just starting off, so it was codenamed SFX at the time, and I just kind of started doing work for that. And then I stayed on contract while I went back to school, so I was doing Mass Effect designs in between homework assignments.
Jeez, now that is something that a lot of people will be envious of, like, interning and then basically just being able to stay on at the studio that you're working at the summer before. That's actually that's really cool.
It was a dream come true because previous summers I was like landscaping and biting my fingernails off, worried that I wouldn't be able to pay for my next semester.
Mm-hmm. So before you interned at BioWare, did you kind of know who they were, or was it sort of like just a thing that dropped out of the sky?
It really dropped out of the sky. Like I had played Knights of the Old Republic with a friend, but I never connected it to a developer. I wasn't following them in any way.
Mm-hmm.
So it really was out of the blue because I was on my way home one day and a teacher just said, "Hey, grab whatever artwork you can find and come to this room."
Oh my God, that's so cool.
Yeah. So I had my sketchbook, and there were a whole bunch of fourth years standing in the room. And they basically pushed me to the front of the line. I can only assume to just get me out of the way.
But
and I just sat down in front of
right in front of the people
now
that
my
were
art
there.
director. Yeah, my current art director on like his name is Matt Goldman,
Mm-hmm.
and he was actually the one that talked to me, and I had no idea who he was, so I just handed him my sketchbook, and we just talked about games and art, and then I went home, and then 2 weeks later I got the phone call that said, "You want to be an intern?"
Wow, in that like 5 minutes or whatever it was, you must have made quite the impression then. Shit.
I guess so.
That's really cool.
I'm very thankful I carried my sketchbook wherever I went.
Yeah. So before that, did you have sort of dreams to get into art in games, or did it literally just fall out of the sky?
It literally fell out of the sky. It was never
Wow.
games. It was only like in my mind it was either film or comics.
Film or comics, like feature films or animation?
Whatever I could find. I would have gone to animation school if I could have afforded it.
Mm-hmm.
But I went to art school instead, and so I just thought, okay, I'll find some way to do it somehow, or graphic novels, or movie concept art was getting pretty interesting at the time, so I thought that would be kind of a cool direction ahead.
11 years ago, that would have been 2005.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess movies were really starting to pick up then, especially animated films as well. Shit.
Yeah.
And, I can tell you from experience, animation school is very expensive because I just graduated like 4 months ago.
Oh, congratulations!
It's killer in terms of tuition,
Yeah.
but it was like you're fond of your school. I'm definitely fond of where I came from as well. It was
Was that Sheridan?
Yeah, I was Sheridan. It was it really is what you put into it, and I put a lot into
Yeah.
it, and obviously you get a lot of it out of it when you do that.
That's yeah. Every student or aspiring artist needs to know that, like, you're not going to get anything out of it but what you put in.
Mm-hmm.
We actually have a fair amount of Sheridan grads with us at BioWare.
Really? Yeah. Actually, I was. I don't know any by name, but I know for a fact that a lot of fourth years either got scooped up immediately or went off after like a studio or two. Like I think do you know Ben Lowe?
I do.
Man, I saw his thesis film back right before I did my thesis film, and I was just like, this guy is gonna end up places. And then he goes and works on BioShock Infinite. Now he's at BioWare, and I'm just like, God damn, that's awesome.
I know, it's really awesome. I work with do you know Nick Thornborough or Casper Konefel?
Both names are familiar. I do not know them in person.
Okay, yeah, they're both on the concept art team.
Wow, and they are they both from Sheridan?
Yep.
Nice, and I guess both from animation too.
Yes.
It's weird how like all the animation people are going off and not doing animation.
I know, right?
Yeah.
It's what happens when you just burn a bunch of 2D animation desks, I guess.
Or yeah, I mean, like, animation also gets you to draw an absolute crap ton, so maybe people would be like, I could put these drawings to such better use.
Totally. Well, I mean, again, this makes me sound like a Luddite and an old man, but as great as new technologies and awesome things are, if you can draw, you can use ZBrush. If you can draw, you can use whatever. The drawing is the true potent skill. I don't know.
Yeah, so like if say you met someone who wanted to like really get into 3D, what would you say for them to, practice 3D a lot, or maybe go half and half drawing in 3D?
Half and half drawing in 3D would probably turn them into a monster.
Really?
I think so. Because like the 3D is great and that's awesome, but there's something about drawing. I mean, I've used this. I was talking about this in Montreal recently. That there's a lot of artists that I know that if like they draw incredibly, and then when they go to turn their artistic attentions elsewhere, it's just it's still there. It's still amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you look at just even some of the 3D artists on our project, some of the great ones. You look at their own personal work and their own paintings, their own drawings, and they're incredible. I just think
they're clearly still doing drawings and paintings on their own. It's not just 3D.
I'm convinced, and this sounds a little tinfoil hat, but I'm convinced that drawing is an immutable skill.
Mm-hmm. Something you just can't go without if you want to work in the industry.
Yeah, it's like the core skill. It's like such a fundamental. You can't break it down into any more parts. And if you can do it, it applies to almost everything.
Yeah, like I don't know if it's my training or my own experience, but I completely agree with that. And even the people I'm working for now, I work for Elliott Animation in Toronto, and I sort of gotten to be pretty good buds with the guy who runs the studio, George Elliott, and he's just like, dude, it's all about drawing. Like, draw those ellipses. Don't just Photoshop them. Like you really got to get those drawing skills down. And even if you think you have it down, you don't. You just keep going.
Oh yeah, it's infuriatingly unlike bicycle riding.
Yeah,
like, you do forget.
Yeah, that's totally true. You can pick up a bicycle after. I mean, I'm not even close to 30, but after like 30 years, or a guitar, and you should be able to more or less remember, at least enough to get by. But you go without drawing for even a week, and it's like, what the hell? I'm like, 5 years back.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Horrifying.
Yeah, it's kind of terrifying how you have to just constantly keep up with it no matter what. It's just like physical exercise.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's much closer to that than it is to a weird muscle memory skill like bicycle riding.
Yeah. So sort of moving forward at BioWare, how many projects have you been involved with there?
Let's see. Okay, Jet Empire, Mass 1, 2, 3, Inquisition, Dragon Age 2. That's 6 that are public, and then about 3 projects that didn't work out. So about 9,
Interesting. Wow, holy.
9 all told, 6 real ones.
And also with a lot of the same people.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and that's one of the great things about being around the same place for so long. It has been with a lot of the same people, and like even still, I'm working with a team that's been around forever. So
Yeah. So, geez, and have you also sort of like switched roles as you sort of continued through your 11 years there, or were you mostly just on the art team, concept art team?
I think I've just figured out more about what the role means.
Right.
Because I mean, honestly, I'm very thankful. I never try to take it for granted that I got to join the company doing what I wanted to do. Like
Mm-hmm.
I came in as a concept artist, and that was exactly what I have always dreamed of doing.
Wow. Yeah, you really lucked
Um,
out in that case.
absolutely. And so I think over the last 10 years, it's just been a matter of figuring out what that means and trying to find out the best way to do it. And also living up to the responsibility of it, because honestly, there was a certain amount of terror. I mean, I worked on Mass Effect fresh out of college,
Mm-hmm.
and that ended up becoming, I mean, Mass Effect. So it's like trying to become an artist worthy of that responsibility.
Yeah, that's I mean just thinking about Mass 1, 2 and 3, like I played those games to death and just looking at the visual design in like literally everything. Like I have the Normandy up on my desk just to remind me like there's that one shape that permeates everything in those games.
Yep.
Like it's just it's awesome, man. So
Yeah.
so out of all those projects that you were involved with, either the ones that went through, the ones that didn't, was there any one particular one that you thought, was the most rewarding or your favorite, or were they all sort of more or less the same on that scale?
Oh, Dragon Age Inquisition.
Definitely. Oh,
Yeah,
really?
absolutely. Not even close. Honestly, so far it has been like the highlight of my career.
Really? And why was that?
It was kind of a perfect storm of reasons. First, it was for years I had been begging for them to put all of the concept artists in the same room. BioWare's kind of built like the building we're in is kind of like a drywall submarine. Like it's a lot of little offices down long hallways.
Oh, okay, cool.
It's not a very open plan space. So I've been begging, like, put us all together, let us all kind of feed off each other because we've been kind of separated for whatever reason.
Right.
And so Inquisition, we finally all got everybody together in the same room, and the creativity it was like static walking in. It was great. You just look over your shoulder and suddenly you're inspired, and people were egging each other on, and um,
Nice.
so that was great. We also had like our art director on that project, Matt Goldman. I just really admire him. I think as an art director, he's kind of what I would aspire to be if I ever decide I want to head down that path.
Hmm.
In that he really he trusts his team and he defends his team, so he lets us get weird, and then he defends our weirdness against the rest of the project.
Interesting. Wow, that's awesome. So like in putting all the artists at BioWare together in a room, you guys kind of became greater than the sum of your parts then?
Absolutely, yeah. Well, and that, I like to say, like we were able to release an art book for Inquisition, and there became a point where we had the discussion that we can't credit each image individually. We have to do it like movie credits because there isn't a single image that we can find that was just done by one person.
Right.
Like some of them were drawn entirely by one person, but it's subject matter that was designed by someone else, or it wouldn't have gotten that to that point without
A whole bunch
the
of people throwing in
someone else.
ideas.
Yeah, so there was just like ego was stripped away, and everyone just basically kept pushing and pushing and sharing techniques, and yeah, it was a really great experience.
Must have just allowed you all to operate at the top of your game then. Damn.
Yeah,
Wow, like you know what? I noticed in transitioning from Dragon Age 2 to Inquisition when I played it, I was just like, this is something different. This is like it's good. It wasn't what I was expecting, but even from that first cutscene, when your character's like, I can't remember if it was a dream sequence or it was right after the explosion, and you're like
yeah,
climbing up that tower. I'm just like,
yeah,
there's something different. There's something cinematic going on here that just wasn't in the other two or even
yeah.
even in Mass Effect. And I was just like, what is going on? This is cool, and it carried throughout pretty much, like the entire game. And I was just like, damn.
Well, and that's I mean I felt the same way watching, especially like that opening sequence for as an example. Nick Thornborough was looking at how the opening was happening, and it was a
Hmm.
lot of exposition and walking and talking. And Nick just knew that there was a better way to tell that story, and so he storyboarded that whole sequence essentially on his own, I think.
Wow.
And then he brought it to color, so he fully colorized it, and then one of our cinematics guys put it to animatic, like made an animatic of it.
Mm-hmm.
And we all got so excited about it. And when we brought it to the writers and the lead and the designers and all the leads on the project, we basically just let it play, and everyone just left the room knowing that that's what we were going to do.
There's like no other way,
It
guys.
was just like, well, of course we're doing that.
Wow.
Just an interesting mystery. You don't know what's going on exactly. It's giving you information, but not too much, and that actually really helped kick off. We did a lot more storyboarding for that game, really than ever before. So we spent
you guys were
probably a
kinda treating
good
it more
6
like-
months for where at least 3 or 4 concept artists were doing just storyboards.
Wow. Holy. Is that something typical that would happen on another project, or are you guys mostly focusing on actual design?
For the most part, just design.
Wow.
Most storyboard stuff would be done by cinematic artists, and then only a few of them that feel comfortable with it.
Mm-hmm.
But this time around, we kind of just we were able to buy ourselves the time. That was another thing that made the project really great, was that we had originally been working on an expansion for Dragon Age 2,
Mm-hmm.
and then when we decided to switch over to the Frostbite engine, we decided to just basically cut our losses, like just start a new game, start the next game, the next full game.
Right.
But all of that stuff we'd done for the expansion was still relevant.
Gotcha. Story-wise as well?
Story-wise, it was mostly, and with the writers were very helpful. Like, they basically wrote a lot of that stuff into the story. And so basically it bought us about, I don't know, 5 or 6 months worth of concept art time.
Wow.
Yeah,
Which I guess probably made a huge difference too.
it really did. Well, and that's why we were able to get like the tarot cards for the menu systems, and
Those were beautiful. I was just like, man, like again, just going above and beyond in that particular game compared to, I mean, like the last two were fantastic, but yeah.
well, and I like to say too, like Dragon Age 2 was the sketch, and Inquisition was the execution.
Right.
Like, because the art direction in Dragon Age 2, like, it was a different art director. It was a lot of a lot of different artists on that team. So it is definitely a change, but it was like, we just weren't able to completely execute what we wanted to on Dragon Age 2. Inquisition was finally being able to take that model that we knew worked and give it all the attention and the love and the time, and the Frostbite engine, frankly.
Right. Yeah. It did make a huge difference. Definitely. Yeah. Wow. So other than BioWare, you haven't been involved with any other studios?
No.
Any like outside work or freelance work or nothing?
Yeah, I just recently was able to do like 3 variant covers for Marvel.
Oh wow!
Which was kind of a dream come true.
Yeah, that's true. I saw that. Actually, my friend pointed one of them out to me. It was the one where like Old Man, Iron Man, and Cap and everybody.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I was like, damn. Matt's really good at Marvel covers. Like, if concept art ever just like turns over, you could just instantly go into another field, and they'd be like, "Where the hell have you been?"
Well, that's encouraging. Yeah. Hopefully it never comes to that. But I mean, it is true. It was a dream come true. I was joking with my wife that Marvel has now given me more money than I've given them.
Wow.
It's kind of a nice a nice turning point there.
One of the things that'd be like Star Wars just suddenly, I don't know, like giving me a little bit of work and then paying for all of the merch I've ever bought in my whole life.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
Man.
So that was pretty cool. But aside from that, there've been a few little side projects here and there and things like that. But
I wanted to ask you about the ILM project, because I've been following your work since like literally the end of high school, which for me is like 5-6 years ago. But that project in particular, a friend at work showed it to me, and I was just like, okay, I know who this is, but this is ridiculous. This is so good.
Oh, thank you.
Like being a huge Star Wars fan, and obviously you are too. Like knowing about the Hidden Fortress, some of the like the backstory of how the films were made, being able to really feed into that project. Do you want to talk a little about the ILM thing?
Sure. Yeah. Well, that was it kind of came at a perfect time. I have 2 kids, and they're now kind of at the age where they actually go to bed.
Right.
So I've been able to get some actual time to make art again. I was sitting at my desk in that familiar state of, okay, what should I draw? Like, I don't want to do another study. I need to actually apply it to something. Mm-hmm. And then pop up comes the ILM Art Challenge on ArtStation. And so I just thought, all right, sure, I'll sign up for this. And then having no idea how much work it would actually be.
Did you know what you were getting into?
I had no idea.
Oh man.
But it was cool. I mean, for the first ones go in, you realize like, wow, there's like 3,000 people or more that are
4,000 actually. And
4,000.
There was like 200 at the end. So I was just like, man, that's like a 5.7 survivor rate.
Yeah, it's
Something
crazy.
like that. Yeah.
It's really crazy. But I just thought that would be great. I haven't really tried drawing Star Wars. I mean, Star Wars is fundamental. It's like mental architecture for all of us at this point.
Yeah.
But I've never tried to draw it. And the one thing I loved about the first challenge was that it was having to draw only stuff that already existed. Like, don't invent characters, don't invent locations. Like, you use only material that's there. And it really kind of forced you to try to like absorb the aesthetic as much as possible.
No designing whatsoever.
Yeah.
Yeah. On my own personal side, I made it to the end of the first, but I was just like, I'm getting used to a full-time job. I'm right out of school. I can't handle both. Like,
oh no, for sure.
A lot of people, including people that could have won, eventually just had to drop out because like, yeah. In fact, I was having an argument with some people at work. I was just like, man, Matt should have won, and like most people were like, yep, and one guy was just like, but yeah, like everyone was like, you just absolutely knocked it out of the park on that one.
Oh, well,
So
thank you. That's encouraging.
like how many hours was that, in total to produce all that stuff?
That's a good question. Each piece for them, I probably put in at least 6 hours.
Jeez.
So that's probably, I don't know, times, how many were there? It doesn't, many hours. It was a long time, but it was spread out. The whole contest kind of was spread out throughout the summer. Like you'd have, the one challenge was just basically 2 images, and they gave you almost like a week and a half for each one. So it ends up being, if you manage your time, it wasn't too bad. But yeah, I totally understand why people were dropping out, and actually that really upped the terror factor. Because for anyone that doesn't know, this contest was run where you couldn't see anybody else that was in it. So as far as you were concerned, it was just you and ILM.
Yeah.
And so
and you also couldn't post on social media, so like you pretty much can't show anything until the end and get feedback on anything whatsoever.
Exactly. So occasionally when a really talented artist would have to drop out and you'd see some of their work, it's like, oh shit, you realize like there are sharks in the water.
Dead sharks, but sharks.
Yeah, it's like, well, if they're dropping out, who's still in? Like this is terrifying.
People are getting picked off, but I mean, like they're sort of getting picked off by their own, schedules or timelines and whatnot.
Yeah.
Shit. Yeah, like that challenge sort of convinced me. Seeing you finish and being like, wow, like I wouldn't have won. I wouldn't even come close. I wouldn't have gotten an honorable mention. But just seeing what you did just convinced me, like if I start a challenge like that or even have an interest in one, I'm never giving up. Like I will make the time from now on. Absolutely.
Well, and honestly, like I'm very like I'm really honored and humbled by the honorable mention. Like that to me, I've been glowing ever since. It's huge. It feels like a bit too much. But I think just
too much or not enough.
I think on a personal note, like it just to have actually finished this, like I'm really thrilled. It showed me just personally what I'm capable of. Like I really tried on this thing, so I'm glad it went far. But I think it's more encouragement to just like try more things, finish more things, try new subject matter.
Yeah, definitely.
And then looking at some of the winners, like the first and second, third place, it's like, oh damn, okay, now I got to work.
Yeah, so it's motivation sort of pushing you and pulling you too.
Exactly.
Nice. So yeah, that sounds like it was a crazy experience for you. Jeez. So moving on, sort of back to your stuff at BioWare. And you said you were a lead concept artist.
Yeah.
So how does that differ from a position like the actual art director and the concept artists that are under you?
Sure. I like to say they basically just needed a point of contact.
Right.
So that's essentially the sum of it for the most part. If someone needs to come talk to the concept art group as a whole, they can come to just one person, and I can kind of filter it that way. But in trying to emulate my art director, there's something I really love about I just see like in leading, he's leading by example, and he basically looks at what his team is experiencing and tries to get any obstacles out of the way. Like that's his number one job. So I kind of try to do the same for anyone that's working with me. Just in any concept art job, there's just a million requests that come through that are, it's just the normal stuff that comes through. It's like, we need 10 chairs, we need, 4 goblets. What does a place setting look like?
Yeah.
What do torches look like in this environment? Like, it's not the awesome, glamorous, design a main character, design a dragon, design all this cool stuff.
Just design a really, really good looking box.
Yeah. But I mean, like, honestly, one of the things I'm the most proud of on Inquisition is, for example, and this I feel is like what a lead should be doing. So I'm thankful I had the opportunity to try it. Was those tarot cards were coming in and they were looking beautiful. Casper Conifel, Ramil Sunga, and Nick Thornborough in particular were just knocking them out of the park.
Yeah.
I did a few of them, but I realized like mine just did not have the same level of charm that theirs had, that they just had this knack for it. So for 2 months, I tried to take on all of the just typical kind of drudge work. Because I'm able to work fairly quickly. That's kind of one of the skills I bring to the table. And so I was able to quickly kind of churn through and essentially play defense so that they could just pour all their love into those things.
Right. So you were basically taking some of their workload so they could really, really nail those things? Because like you see those tarot cards all the time in the game.
Oh, yeah.
Like every
exactly.
load screen, you can like shuffle through them. It's fucking cool.
Totally. And so every time a new one would be finished, it would just, if I'm getting tired or frustrated or exhausted, a new one would come in and it just, that's why I'm doing it. Awesome. Okay. Totally worth it. So in that case, I think as a lead, that's like one of those things that you can do is you should know your team and recognize, who can do what, and try to provide opportunities for an artist to really excel at whatever it is that their gifts are.
Interesting. Okay, cool. That's totally something I wouldn't have expected, but yeah, it's awesome.
It's also kind of BioWare was smart in that they realized pretty early on that they kept promoting people out of their abilities.
Okay.
So they created like management streams and tech streams. So as you get promoted, you could either become a people person, a people manager, or you could become a technical, you get technically promoted. So that's kind of the path that I've chosen. Like if I were to become an art director, I would be drawing way less.
Right. And you sort of do not want to do that. You want to keep drawing no matter what.
Yeah, for the foreseeable future, I want to be at my desk drawing. So being a lead concept artist is kind of the highest point that I can still be doing that.
Right.
And so just kind of continuing in that vein, me and my art director work really well together. So we're just trying to hold this pattern of art director and lead concept artist, and just I go out and I draw whatever needs to get drawn, and he's able to kind of manage how that gets translated to the rest of the team.
Interesting. Okay, cool. Wow, that's a distinction that is definitely news to me, which is really, really good to sort of file away. And for everyone else who's listening too, I get all these little tidbits about what concept art actually is and all the little nuances and stuff, and even studio to studio it's different. And I'm just like, wow, this is such an awesome field.
Totally.
I mean, I'm working visual development in an animation studio, so it's kind of similar, but it's also a lot smaller scale too.
Right. So you're doing a lot of different subject matter.
Like literally everything.
Okay. Yeah. Like, are you doing like within a production? So what kind of stuff are you working on right now?
So right now the studio itself is working on a couple of Nickelodeon shows, and I actually don't know if I can mention what they are, but Nickelodeon, so a lot cartoonier. Sure. And then sort of in the back drawer, we're doing a lot of development on original shows that will eventually be coming out of the studio. So we want to basically fund them ourselves. And some of them are like detailed and like semi-realistic enough to look like Star Wars concept art, and then some of it is just like some of the most cartoony stuff I've ever seen. And like I come from the side of things kind of like you actually, where like the more sort of DreamWorks end of animation where it's a little not realistic, but it's sort of it's in between that and cartoony. And I'm really stretching what I can do by attempting simpler stuff, and it's like it's harder than it sounds.
Oh man, that would. Yeah, well, like trying to switch up your style, that's got to just be a massive Massive change.
Yeah, it sort of just it basically requires you to just sort of walk off the edge of the plank and just take the plunge and just
Yeah.
friggin' do it. And if you don't if it doesn't really work out, then like that's okay because you can pass it on to like we got another I think one or two people in development now because it's kind of a growing thing ever since I got there. One of the interns who was going to go back to Sheridan for fourth year ended up just staying on at the studio because he's like, I need money and they think I can do it and everyone's telling me to, so I'm going to stay. And that's
Yeah.
friggin' awesome for him because not only does he get to miss out on, I don't even know how much animation is per year now, but like he also just gets to get into the industry earlier,
Yeah. Well,
which is really awesome for him too. Actually, kind of reminds me of you, except you went back to school.
yeah.
But yeah, it's a really really kick-ass job so far, and I'm just absolutely loving every part of it. It's really stressful too, but I think that kind of comes with it.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
Like
Well,
like like
and that's and the
in,
nice thing
in
is,
your own experience, is it sort of like stress sometimes, lower stress other times?
yeah, it comes in waves for sure.
Hmm.
There's times where everything is needed right now, and
Yeah.
then other times, although it is rare, that you get to sit and really think and try things out and experiment.
Hmm.
Um, but I mean, that's true. That the stressful times, I think, are it's really good. We've been doing some life drawing at work, and we uh, you end up getting into that 10-minute pose length where you're starting to really just take your time. And then at one point we switched right back to 1 minute. I was like, oh crap, shit, how does this work? Okay, and you suddenly realize that how much confidence comes from having to rush,
Hmm. Yeah.
and you really find your own shorthand when you're trying to get things done super fast.
Yeah, that's totally
I
what gesture drawing is all about. It's all shorthand until you can get the hang of the
Yeah,
poses.
which I'm starting to believe more and more that's all style is. It's like whatever your shorthand is.
Hmm. Yeah. Shit. There was a YouTube video and someone was mentioning that. Yeah, a friend sent it to me. I watched it about a month ago, and he was saying like it's better just to learn to draw realistically, and then
Yeah.
sort of figure out what your shorthand is. What was his
I
example? I think
I know
he.
the video you're talking about. He was talking about an anime nose.
Oh yeah, that was it. Holy shit! And he was just like, so like the shadow shape. Basically, the artist just like distilled it down into this particular shape, and that's it. It's a nose missing all the other detail except for this, and it's
Yeah.
sort of how he sort of shorthands reality. And I was just like, that's amazing. I'm just gonna completely forget about my own style then and just study reality until it becomes boring.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, being able to just yeah, because if you understand it, you can change it, you can define it. That's it's funny too because I'm kind of glad to use the anime example because I mean there are some very talented artists who use it, but there are a lot of style traps that young artists fall into
Right.
where they think if they just figure out this style, then they're going to be okay instead of figuring out reality.
Yeah, definitely. I actually know some really really kick ass artists who work in like an anime style,
Yeah,
but the best ones can switch immediately out of it, and they're
exactly.
just like, I can draw Western cartoons, I can draw like Western comics or like realistic anything because they've already
Totally.
studied it. Yeah,
Yeah. Well, a
definitely.
great other example would be like furry artists, but then you look at Black Sad.
Exactly. Black Sad is like that, just taken to the absolute like extreme, but good extreme.
Exactly.
And I think I'd argue that Black Sad like it definitely comes less from like the anime furry side and more from like just I guess the anthropomorphic Disney animation side.
Just being unbelievably talented side. Yeah.
Yeah, basically, and then watercoloring every single page. Like what the hell, man?
But
That's
man,
just
I know. I know.
ugh. Like I'm not even that far along my own development. Like my career started 4 months ago, but like god damn it, I still
Ugh, it's so
yeah.
daunting, but
Yeah, well,
worth
you know what? Like, do more ILM challenges, and you'll have the confidence to just make a black sad yourself. Actually, that's
heck
another
yeah.
question I wanted to ask you. So, like on the side, if you have any time at all, do you have like any personal IP projects going?
I do.
Really
Yeah, I
awesome.
do. I a few years ago, actually surprisingly a long amount of time ago now, probably like 5 or 6 years or something like that. I did a comic for an anthology project
Mm-hmm.
that some fellow artists and from ACAD and BioWare were doing. So everyone just kind of pitched in with a comic, and I just enjoyed that so much, and I've been
Mm-hmm.
thinking about it ever since. So I've been kind of writing and drawing. I've got about 10 pages of thumbnails for an outline.
Wow.
Uh, so I think, yeah, just kind of toying with the graphic novel thing. We'll see how what time allows, and and how things
Yeah,
go.
that's pretty much it. Like you got to schedule it into what you're already doing.
Yeah.
But yeah, actually, there's an artist that you if have you heard of Mickey Montillo?
Can you spell that?
Miki and then Montlllo with an accent on the O. You might also just get lucky by searching
Yeah.
Warship Jolly Roger.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's pretty
Yeah.
much exactly what you just described, just made real.
Totally. That was incredible.
Yeah, I'm staring at it on my desk right now because I finally just found the hardcover version, and I was just like, so, and I flipped to the back because I knew there was gonna be some cool stuff, and he basically just treated it like an animation production, and the entire comic could be cells from an animated film, but they're just
Yeah.
drawings, really
Yeah.
really well rendered and drawn drawings, but like it could be an animated film if he could find like all the funding and stuff. But yeah, that's basically it. Personal IP turned real into a comic book.
Mhm. Well, and what's the? I'm not very up on it, but I was excited to see Disney picked up Delilah Dirk. Am I saying that right? But basically just this side project or a graphic novel project. Someone who'd been on for years, totally just looked like a thing of passion. Now it's essentially the next IP.
Wow. You know what? I'm gonna have to search this because this is news to me. Delilah. Oh wow! Holy.
Yeah,
Oh, you know what? I've seen this. I've seen this a little bit, and number one, it totally looks like something Disney would pick up.
hmm
Yeah, it's really up their alley. But it's interesting. A lot of like really really well drawn comics, like they're all they don't all look the same, but they all have that look, like someone who can draw
Yep.
literally everything. So
Yep.
they just do draw literally everything.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
geez, yeah. I'm gonna have to look more into this because this is some insane looking stuff.
Yeah, it's really nice.
Wow. um, we've actually kind of gone over this a little bit, but is there anything else that you think like what's the least known thing about working as a concept artist in games? Like something that people may never have thought of.
Um, that's a really good question. One that I'll probably think about for the next few months. But I think, over one of the ones that I've been kind of passionate about that I've talked about is just that there is a lot of really mundane stuff that needs to get done.
Mm-hmm.
And there's not really any way around it.
Yeah.
At least, for this foreseeable future, that a chair is a chair. We need to know what chair is, but like with games, okay, well, let me put it this way: with movies, there are prop warehouses where you can go find stuff. You can go to locations, you can get things.
Right.
Um, with games, everything needs to be built by somebody. Every
Mm-hmm.
blade of grass, every wooden table leg, everything needs to be
Right.
built.
Because you can't just reuse assets from like 10 games or 10 years ago. You have to design everything from scratch.
Yeah, given the nature of technology, I mean, I have a rant for another day where I think honestly, someone should just pull the lever and we should stop and just try to make everything we have now as good as possible
Right.
for like a solid decade and just focus on art and story. But I know that's never going to happen.
It's crazy, but that actually sounds really cool.
Yeah, but I think that it's one of those things. So being able to keep working on your fundamentals and keep working on being able to render stuff in a convincing way and is taking every opportunity to reinforce the story,
Mm-hmm.
because every crate has the potential to say something about the setting.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
so there are those chances there, but just being really okay with that, being enjoying taking on all of that extra stuff, because it really it's like a side project. If you want to do a graphic novel, I mean, I admire Mike Mignola. Hellboy is just incredible. It's my favorite graphic novel ever. But he figured out a way to only draw the things he likes to draw,
Mm-hmm. And
which
somehow
is
just make a story out of it.
exactly which is awesome. But taking on a bigger project like a comic, suddenly you realize, oh shit, if I don't draw these cobblestones, it's just not going to work.
Yeah.
And so you have to force yourself to get into all of these little details. And I like to say too, especially character concept art, it's like a character concept work is 90% anatomy and drapery.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't understand anatomy, and you don't have a really solid foundation of being able to render drapery, then all you're left with is made up space foam stuff. Like, it just, there's not
True,
much
yeah,
left.
definitely. Because even if a character is wearing like like a Mass Effect bodysuit, there's still materials that you got to figure out to go over that, and they don't wear that suit 100% of the time.
Exactly.
Yeah, and something like Inquisition, literally everyone is wearing some form of drapery, usually with armor over top of it. But yeah, shit. And I'm guessing that requires just a ton of continuous research before you even start designing.
Yep. Yep. Constant. Because like we were saying at the start, it falls out of you like a sieve, so you need to keep filling it back up.
Right. Like when you're sort of like let's say just given a new concept or something to design, or maybe even at the start of a project, how much time do you have for research versus actually producing stuff to be sent off and modeled?
There isn't really a set time, and it's not like we're restricted where we can't do any of it. So it really is whatever you feel comfortable giving yourself.
Right.
There are times when I know there's like a big thing to attempt. I've now done this a couple of times. I'll just go down to the public library for a day, and I'll just pull out a pile of books that's half as tall as me, and I'll just go in with my camera and just start gathering whatever I can. And then that day is usually worth about 4 months of research at least.
Wow. Shit. And like getting books as opposed to just Googling stuff. Is there a definite benefit to going to an actual book on a subject and getting?
Oh, doesn't even compare.
Yeah, that's what I was
Honestly,
thinking.
the internet is still useless compared to that. Well, I mean, okay, not useless, but you look at, like, if for something to be on the internet, it has to be scanned by somebody, and then you have to trust that they're labeling it and making it findable, and that it's not just a picture of someone's cat or penis or whatever.
Right.
And
and
so
you're talking about really, really specific things like, like a type of drapery or a type of armor that's been worn, like for 100 years in some corner of the world that you could easily just find in a book, along with hundreds and hundreds of other similar things that you could research.
Yeah, well, because if you're looking for, I mean, let's say we'll go with armor. There's a particular kind of armor that you're looking for. You go online, and once you're able to filter out all of the Skyrim armor and all of the LARPing armor and all of the cosplay and all of the Halloween costumes, you're left with what it ends up being actually a fairly shallow pool of material. But you go to the library, and honestly, still there are books and books and books, all yet unscanned, that are filled with images that are all cited, labeled, and then that book is then a page right beside the next few pages are filled with other examples of those things and descriptions of what those things are.
Right.
So with armor, I mean, if you realize, okay, well, in my game, you're only ever fighting magical crabs that shoot fireballs. Well, we know that the armor that was designed for the Middle Ages was built to solve a certain problem. So if we reverse engineer it based on our problem, we'll come up with something else.
Right.
And so having that deeper understanding of stuff that you can get with, I find much more easily, much more cleanly with books. It just gives you that deeper understanding and cool other options and just the potential for discovery. Because even I'd say, like, I go looking for one thing, and I probably on my way grab 10 other books on other things that just happen to grab my eye. Like, Google's algorithms are getting great, but they're still nowhere near.
Yeah, it's true. And like I've noticed in like researching for my own design projects, Google kind of drops off after about 5 minutes of looking, and you're just like, this is the same stuff, or at least like the same pictures of or different pictures of the same stuff, and it's just like, all right,
man. I watched Snow White and the Huntsman. That movie is my reference folder.
Really?
Like, you just from a few years ago, and it's the reference folder of a few other artists I know. Like, there were just almost every interesting thing from that film. It's like, oh yeah, I have that shot.
Wow, was that good? Like, I actually haven't seen it. I gave it a miss, but I will definitely check it out now.
No, well, I'm not saying this in a really great way. I mean, like, that Snow White and the Huntsman was like watching Google image search the movie.
Oh, okay, cool.
Because
just like the good side of Google image search.
Well, because it's like, we all have that picture of the artist that sculpted the gold sculpture of the blanket
Right.
over the figure, and there were all these little like different little animals in there, different pieces of costume that like, I've seen that before, I've seen that before, I've seen that before. It was like very much just skimming the surface of what Google image searches can give you from reference, and then just putting all that in your movie.
Skimming the surface of what could have been if they'd researched a little more then.
Yeah, like if they had, it just felt like, I don't know, just too familiar territory watching that.
Right.
Which is why, I
it's
mean,
like that's like everything I've oh, I get it now. So it's like everything I've already seen, everything I've already studied. Great.
yeah, like I have that picture of that butterfly,
Mm-hmm.
and they put it in. I know what they're referencing here. I know what that is. I know what that texture is from. It just, yeah, it gets really familiar.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why it's another thing I like about working with the art director I'm with right now, Matt Goldman, where he's just very much about going as far back as you can get.
Yeah.
So a lot of our references, we don't like talking about movies from the last 50 years. Like we try to go back farther. And if we're looking at artwork, we're trying to go way back. Like the Northern Renaissance is something we talk about a lot for Dragon Age.
Mm-hmm.
Just because, I don't know, you just get farther and farther back before it's been kind of chewed up and regurgitated by artists.
Yeah, that's true because like once you've referenced one thing and then another artist either references your work or what you reference, like it definitely, I guess, pays to go a little bit farther back. You're totally right. Yeah. Huh.
And I say this knowing I'm not that great at it yet. Like this is still something I'm totally trying to push myself into.
Yeah, but you're working on it when a lot of people just aren't, and they're just creating like the same stuff over and over again. Actually, I saw this trailer for this movie. I think it's coming out of Russia, but I could be wrong. And it's basically the Russian version of the Avengers.
Yeah,
and I was just like,
yeah.
oh my god, this is concept art. The movie.
Yes.
It was like every concept of like every generic concept of anything you've ever seen. It was in that trailer, and I was just like, this is just worth watching for the laughs. Like it's gonna be. It's going to be awesome because, like, obviously people got paid to work on it, but I'm just going to be like, I've seen all of this. I guess it's the same thing as Snow White and the Huntsman, except it's concept art, not just, everything you've seen on Google. Huh.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah.
Wow.
I'm still going to watch the hell out of it. It looks that looks way too much fun.
Yeah, it's like it's like oh man, there's a lot of really really good bad movies, but like legitimately good bad movies out there. Like there was that knockoff of the Terminator that came out of I think it was Bollywood.
Yep.
Oh god, like I actually watched that like a couple months ago a couple times with different people just to see the reactions, and everyone loved it. It was oh man, it was just over the top to the point of just absolute stupidity, and it was
Isn't this great though? I mean, this is one of the things that I was talking about with some artists when I was again back in Montreal, and saying how I just love it when artists are working and trying their hardest to be who they are.
Mm-hmm.
And to, like, as an artist, just work on your fundamentals so that whatever your style is, whatever your voice is, we get to hear it. Because we don't need, a million ArtStation clones or, whatever, like people who just have the same thing all trying to be the same artists. Because you look at, like, we wouldn't get Bollywood Terminator or Russian Avengers with a bare head. It's like we want everyone's voice.
Yeah. Man, we should like in the YouTube notes of this podcast, I'm gonna have to put clips of that stuff up because people are gonna be like, what are they talking about? I want to see this. I was actually gonna ask you sort of as we start to wrap up, what would a piece of advice or like several pieces of advice, if you have them, be to someone who wants to get into concept art for games specifically? But that sort of is it right there. Like,
Mm-hmm.
just like work on your fundamentals and just let your style come. And like, I know how hard that is because I've been fighting with it like halfway through school and even now. Like I just gotta sort of lean back and let it come. But is there anything else you might want to say to someone?
I want to be able to say this. I haven't tried saying this before, so I don't know if I hope it's not at risk of sounding egotistical because I don't want it to sound like
it's fine.
But that was like one of my big goals with the ILM challenge was just to do what I like to do.
Mm-hmm.
I know I have all the Star Wars art books. I see Star Wars concept art. I see like James Klein and Dylan Cole and all their stuff online. I see it. I know what's going on. But I just wanted to try not to emulate that, but just to do what I do and just see what happens.
Yeah.
And the cool thing was an honorable mention out of it. Like, that's awesome.
What came through the Matt Rhodes pipe in that project was like people really liked it. So you're on the right track.
Yeah, people have been sending me some nice messages. So I just think it just goes for myself. It really reinforces what I've come to believe is just, we all want to see, like, just do what you do. And we all want to see it.
Yeah, and you know what? I said this before, but I'll say it again. Seeing your stuff on the ILM project and just seeing a guy like you who draws the way you do, working as a concept artist, which is what I eventually want to do, that's friggin' awesome. The fact that, you don't have to, beautifully, realistically render everything. You can get away with just, drawing the way you want to draw, and it just works. That's awesome. Actually, one last question I had, which I've asked some other people, but I'll ask you too, because I'm assuming the answer is going to be similar. When you're working on a project, how much sort of line drawing versus legit either photo bashing or like hand painted stuff do you really have to worry about doing?
Yeah, well, it thankfully doesn't end up being very much photo bashing or realistic stuff. I still will do it. Sometimes just either because we're specifically sending things out to an outsourcing studio that really needs that level of specificity, or it just as something that we know is going to just especially be shown more and more to people wearing suits.
Right.
That have a harder time translating it. But I think for the most part, too, one thing I say is that concept art has to be like 50% conversation. Both you talking to the people who need the stuff before you start drawing. Like, you need to know what you're drawing before you get started.
Right.
Which sounds obvious, but it's amazing how many artists just start drawing.
Yeah, I'm guilty of that.
Yeah, me too. But then too, taking your image and going and bringing it to the people who are building it and talking them through it and kind of explaining it. Like, that's one thing. It is kind of weird. I get the style thing a lot because my stuff is simple and okay, DreamWorks comparisons, Disney comparisons, I get it for sure. I'll own it.
Which is absolutely not a bad thing, by the way. Like that's like
I'm thrilled by it. I gotta say I grew up aspiring to be that, so that works. But I think too it comes with, like, I'm drawing blueprints for people. I'm trying to be very specific so that 3D model builders don't have to try to come up with this stuff out of the blue. Like, VEG looks really cool in concept art, but it doesn't help the people who have to work on it. And so it's just kind of it's not like I'm trying to be all styly. It's just that's just
how you do things.
Yeah, it just to make things as clear as possible to the people. Like, it is literally just blueprints. And so I think while I may not render stuff a lot, I'm being very specific about what has to be built. I'm drawing what has to be built by people, and I'm going and making sure that they don't have any questions, or if they do, they're perfectly free to come ask me. But we do a lot of stuff. It's easy enough now once you build up relationships with artists. Like, if you point an arrow at something and throw in a picture of a leather jacket or something and say, kind of like this,
they'll sort of know what you're talking about. Be like, okay, cool, let's move on.
Yeah, because to me, the absolutely most important thing in the design hierarchy by far is shape. And so you can establish that with line. You don't need to render out exactly how cracked this, corduroy pant is, whatever else like that. It's the shape of the thing that is the most important.
Right. You could just take a picture of some cracked corduroy pants and then just put it up next to your line drawing.
Slap it on. That's great. But yeah, so I think it's just a matter of, and then that helps me, design 10 things instead of rendering one.
Wow, that's really, really good to think about. And that is definitely something that I did not know about concept art, and other people probably don't know either. So concept art is 50% communication, not just in like talking, but communicating as clearly as possible with your artistic ideas as well, or what you're designing.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Oh shit. Man, this has been amazing, dude. Great interview. I'm really, really happy we did this.
Yeah, it's been fun.
Yeah. So as we sort of
I can talk about this stuff forever. Sorry.
Yeah, I can tell you've really sort of got your thoughts straight with everything. So as we wrap this thing up, do you want to let everybody know where your work can be found, like ArtStation or your blog or whatever?
Yeah, sure. You can find my work at ArtStation, or I do have a Tumblr account, a Twitter account. I still have an old Blogspot account that I can't delete because I'm just so nostalgic about it. I forced myself to just choke down my. I made a Facebook account, so I have that only recently, and I think I have a DeviantArt account as well. I do. I shouldn't. I just don't go to the DeviantArt account. DeviantArt is DeviantArt.
Too late. Back in high school, that's where I first found your stuff. I was just like, I remember, like copying your what was it? Your I think it was your reboot redesigns, and I was just like, this is so freaking cool. And like that was actually one of my first sort of introductions just to art in general. It was you and Joe Mad and like a whole bunch of like original Star Wars concept artists and like 50 or 60 other people, but that specifically, I remember that clearly in my mind, and I'm just like, damn. So yeah, thanks for the intro into art, Matt.
It's getting really surreal and trippy to be talking to younger and younger people about this
people
stuff.
That just like dug your stuff up and copied it and then tell you about it like 10 years later.
When I'm starting to hear like, man, when I was a kid, my dad and I would play Mass Effect, and it's like, what?
Wait, hold on, how old are you? I don't know.
What year is it?
I don't know if I should tell you this or not, but I played Mass Effect when I was like, I don't know, 14, 15, 2007? Yeah, around then.
Oh my goodness.
And that of course blew my effing mind because I played Jade Empire, I played KOTOR 1 and 2, and then Mass Effect came along and I was just like, okay, what the heck, what is this? It was awesome. Anyway, so yeah, is there anything else you want to get off your chest or say?
Oh man, I can't think of it. Well, there is one thing, but it might take too long.
You know what? We got time. We can take another 5-10 minutes if you want.
Well, this is just something kind of neat that I figured out. I was recently at an art conference in Montreal.
Awesome.
That was called The Gathering of Masters by Sin Studios, and there was everybody showed up thinking that, okay, everyone else who's come to talk about this has way more technical knowledge than me, so I'm going to talk about something that I think is important. It turns out all 10 speakers came to talk about story.
Really?
Yeah. And so you had like James Gurney and Terrell Whitlatch, and then like animator Samantha Youssef, and like Ubisoft concept artists like Raphael Lacoste, and it just everybody
they were all talking about story because like Samantha Youssef is like a big life drawing buff, and shit.
Well, and that's where Samantha Youssef was the one that triggered it for me, because she was running a life drawing session at the end of the night. And she talked about how the line of action is the story, and everything else on top of that is like the grammar.
Damn. You're blowing my mind because when at Taffy, which is the Toronto Animation Arts Festival International, if I'm saying that right, she was there and she was saying that, but she did not say exactly that. So that's really cool how that she must have like developed that idea afterwards, I guess.
Yeah, it kind of blew my mind because I realized like the story is absolutely everything. It is at the core of what we're doing. Like if you don't have a story, if you're not telling a story, there's no point drawing anything.
And story is kind of like context. It's sort of like it's your reason for drawing this character or this box or whatever.
Exactly. So when you're doing like a life drawing, having that line of action, like that's everything about the character right there. That's everything about the pose, and then everything after that. If you nail that line of action and you get their story, the pose will work.
Right.
And so I still haven't clicked it together there, but it just reinforced for me how important that is. So that's something I've really been kind of stewing around. Maybe in a couple of years I'll actually have that as a really digestible thought. But
right, yeah, I remember her version of line of action was different than what like you would normally be taught in art school. It's not like it doesn't follow the spine. It's like the general action of the body. And I remember she had like a whole bunch of live action stuff that she'd drawn over. Yeah, and I was just like. Yeah. Like I was just like, man, mind blown, especially with like the stuff where people's feet were leaving the ground and then the line quickly transferred from one leg to the other. I was just like, dude, what is going on here?
It's amazing.
Yeah. And she was really cool to talk to too. Like she had so many amazing ideas about just life drawing, story, life in general. I was just like, okay, I'm just going to listen to you and I'm not going to say a word because I don't want to interrupt you.
Well, as like both ex-ballerina and like Disney 2D animator, she is like the chosen one of life drawing teachers.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Like it really doesn't get more sort of like niche than that. Like understand the body through like both moving it herself and then drawing it and then seeing it. It's like
Mm-hmm.
you can't you can't ask for anything more in a life drawing teacher than that. It's crazy. Shit. Actually, so in school, did you do like a ton of life drawing? Is that kind of where you started your life drawing track?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
then
we
you just
did.
sort of
Yeah.
continued it up until now?
Yeah, it was part of the fundamentals program. Like just everyone did it, and yeah, it was just something that we never stopped. There's a place that does it up here in Edmonton. I try to get to drop in classes, but I'm not very good at it. But even just at work, we've done like video series, which drawing from pictures is never quite as good, but it's at
It's
least
something, yeah.
Yeah,
It's
better than
it's
looking at
better
after.
than not doing it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So I actually kind of fell off the life drawing train a little bit, but I really got to get back on because I'm like fresh out of school and I absolutely do not want to stagnate. And it's probably
Oh
not going to
yeah.
happen, but they got like drink and draw sessions in Toronto, and like
Oh,
there's
that's
actually
great.
quite a few. Like so, I really have no excuse. I basically got to get back into it.
Yeah. No, that's cool. Actually, it was kind of neat recently. I found out well one of our technical artists or our technical animators, sorry, Aaron. He has horses. Um, so I actually got to go out to his ranch and we did like a horse life drawing session.
Wow.
It felt like I was just pretending I was one of the old Disney animators back in the day. Bringing animals.
Yeah, going like researching on some crazy new film. It's
Yeah.
all horses.
Yeah.
Yeah, next James Baxter over here. Anyway, dude, it has been absolutely fantastic to talk to you. Like, learned a ton of good stuff, and other people will too once they watch this.
Well, I hope so. Awesome.
Anyway, so guys, this has been our interview with Matt Rhodes. I had a ton of fun. Hope you did too. And I'd like to thank him for giving up part of his evening to have a chat, share some of the wisdom. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you enjoyed this. We got plenty more awesome interviews coming up soon. And this has been the Digital Artcast. And I'm Colin. Gordon will be back for the next one. And I will see you guys all in the next one. Bye-bye.